welcome to the students. This is a part of the e-content creation for the postgraduate course. This is supported by UGC under its EPG Pathshala. This is sponsored by the National Mission on Education through Information and Communication Technology of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. We are presently covering the syllabus of MA Sanskrit course, which consists of 16 papers totally, and the one that I am handling now pertains to the Kavya portion of the MA Sanskrit course. We will be dealing with the 5th canto of Kalidasa's Kumarasambhavam. We will start with an invocatory verse. Vagartha vivasam praktau Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah pitarau vande Parvati parameshwarau. It has been said that Kalidasa is one of the brightest stars in the galaxy of Sanskrit poets and dramatists. Three great poets have given the truest representation of Indian culture. The three, all belonging to the pre-Christian era, are Valmiki, Vyasa and Kalidasa. Though we have called many other poets our national poets, it is in these three writers that we find a full, comprehensive and faithful representation of Indian culture. Other poets of great renown of our own times, like say Rabindranath Tagore or Kuvempu, have all been called national poets or Rashtrakavis. But we can see that their poetry and their writings in general have certain limitations. In Tagore, you can find a wonderful representation of the geography or the culture of Calcutta and surrounding regions. In the writings of Kuvempu, the regions of Malnad in Karnataka have been most beautifully depicted. But in neither of them can you find a pan-Indian approach where we see the representation of Indian culture in its myriad aspects throughout the length and breadth of the country. And this was done in an age when there was no transport as we have today. These are the days of superfast trains and aeroplanes, and in days when there were no such facilities, the three poets have been able to give a faithful picture of even the vast geography of the country, noting the cultural practices of the various corners of the country too. In Kalidasa, we have a wonderful description of the geography of India, which shows his intimate knowledge of the same, where he finds occasions in his works like Meghaduta and Raghuvamsha to describe the various parts of India and the various practices that people have had. Thus, we are also paying homage to a great national integrator while we study his works. Nothing precise is known regarding the date or life or place of Kalidasa. Many regions of the country have tried to claim that Kalidasa belongs to them. Kalidasa has described Ujjain in glowing terms, and therefore the people of Ujjain would say that Kalidasa belongs to them. Kalidasa has described the Kesara, the Kunkuma Kesara of Kashmir, and therefore Kashmir people say that Kalidasa belongs to them. Practices in Bengal make some people make them claim that Kalidasa belonged to their region. So every region vies with each other vies with the other to say that Kalidasa belongs to them. In a sense, Kalidasa is a pan-Indian poet. Kalidasa has written 7 works, of which 3 are plays. The 3 plays of Kalidasa are Malavikagnimitram, Vikramorushiyam, and his magnum opus Abhignana Shakuntalam. He has also written 2 Mahakavyas, namely Kumarasambhavam and Raghuvamsham. He has also written 2 Khandakavyas, namely Meghaduta and Ritusamhara. When we compare him to some of the poets of the West, we can find that Shakespeare is renowned for writing dramas. To his credit, there are 37 plays, and he has no doubt created a wondrous variety of characters and given a lifelike portrayal of those characters. But Shakespeare is not famous for writing epic poetry. The credit for writing epic poetry goes to Milton, who has not penned dramas. Similarly, Keats or Wordsworth are reputed for writing lyrics, but they are not renowned for writing plays. And it is only in Kalidasa that you can find a blend of all these literary forms in which each he excels remarkably. Thus we find that Kalidasa is a great genius who was a master in the varied literary forms. As to his date, we know very little. The traditional ascription is to the 1st century BC. He is said to have reigned in the court of King Vikramaditya. There is the famous 9 gems theory, according to which in the court of Vikramaditya there were 9 gems. Dhanvantari Kshapanaka Marasimha Shanku Vetala Bhatta Ghatakarpara Kalidasaha Kyato Varaha Mihiro Nripate Sabhayam Ratnani Vai Vararuchir Nava Vikramasya. There have been various theories regarding the date of Kalidasa. Some claiming that he belonged to the early centuries of BC, and some that he belonged to even as late a date as 11th century AD. Many of these theories have been refuted, and the 2 dates that are possible according to modern research is the 1st century BC theory and the 5th century AD theory. But even there are some evidences which go to prove that he belonged to the 1st century BC rather than to the 5th century AD. Ashwaghosha, a very great Buddhist poet, has closely followed Kalidasa in many of his descriptions and in many of the expressions. Thus, Kalidasa stands as one of the topmost poets of our country. Presently, we will be dealing with one work of his by name Bhavam, and in particular the 5th canto of Kumarasambhavam, which is normally prescribed for the course. Kumarasambhavam of Kalidasa deals with the story of the birth of Kumara, also known as Subramanya or Shanmukha, or sometimes as Kumaraswamy. This deals with the birth of this young prince who ultimately slays the demon Taraka. This has to do with the Puranic story obtainable in the Shaiva Puranas. Our Puranas abound in stories which typically depict the rise of an asura, especially through austerities. The asura attains great powers by means of the austerities and finally becomes a Loka Kantaka, a tormentor of the world, and the Lord has to descend himself to finish this asura. We may take a small amount of time to analyze this theme of the Puranas for this is a very recurring theme of the Puranas. The same story in its various allotropic forms forms the theme of the various Puranas. The Asura performs great austerities, and the Lord appears before him and asks him what boon he wants. Oftentimes the Asuras have tried to be very smart. They generally seek immortality as the boon for their tapas. The Lord has to say that bodily immortality is not possible in nature. Even when the Lord himself descends on the earth, he too has to go back. He too has to finish his avatara. And therefore, physical immortality is not a viable proposition in the given scheme of things. And therefore, the Asuras have always pitched upon asking the next best that they can think of. So, they say that they must not die this way or that way. For example, there was this demon who said he should not die inside a house or outside a house, during day or during night. And of course, the solution for the problem lies within the very statement of the Asura, and the Lord descends at a time and at a place where it is neither inside the house nor outside the house, neither when it is daytime nor when it is night time. And therefore, you all know the story of that great Asura who was killed by Lord Narasimha, so who appeared all of a sudden at the vestibule of the building, and at a time when it was neither morning nor night, namely the evening twilight. Another Asura obtained a special boon by which he could threaten even the very divinity that granted the boon. Bhasmasura tried to obtain a boon, as a consequence of which he would be able to destroy anyone by merely placing his hand on that opponent. And he tried this with Lord Shiva himself. And even Lord Shiva, true to the scheme of things, he runs away from Bhasmasura, and it is as though he has to send a request to Lord Vishnu, who comes in the form of a charming woman, because the Lord knows where the weakness of the Asura lies, and therefore he comes and casts a spell on this Asura, attracting him by his, or rather her, extraordinary charming person, and Bhasmasura is totally distracted. And while teaching Bhasmasura the art of dance, Mohini places her own hand on her own head, which Bhasmasura faithfully does and reduces himself to ashes. There are several similar stories, and the multiplication of stories on this very theme is to show that the mind deceives us in varied ways, and therefore the message of this all is that it's not good to acquire power. It's not enough to acquire power. You must also know how to make use of that power, especially for the good of one's own self and for the good of others in society. This is a lesson that the Asuras never learn. It in fact needs a sattva guna for this concern to arise prominently in their mind, and this is what is missing in the case of the Asuras, and therefore they prove to be loka kantakas, thorn on the flesh of the universe, and they ultimately need to be destroyed. In Kalidasa's Kumarasambhavam, there is one demon by name Taraka, who is similarly a powerful Asura, and he has obtained a special boon, namely that he would not be destroyed except by a 7-day-old child. Now, who is it that can give birth to such a child that can destroy this powerful demon? It's only Shiva and Parvati that can do that. And therefore, Kalidasa deals with the birth of this person, this child that can destroy this demon Tarakasura, and this is the story of Kumarasambhavam. Kumara referring to that child which can ultimately destroy this demon Taraka. Kumarasambhavam is a poem in 17 cantos, out of which sometimes the authors, the critics say that only 8 are authored by Kalidasa. We will be dealing with the 5th canto of Kumarasambhavam. The outline of the Kumarasambhavam story is this: Taraka becomes very powerful and is torturing even the gods themselves. The gods make a prayer to the Lord, and it is assured that Lord Shiva's son would be the one who can destroy this demon, and for this Shiva first of all has to get married. After the passing away of Dakshayani, Shiva has taken recourse to austerities in the Himalayan region, and Parvati, who is reborn, Dakshayani, who is reborn as Parvati, she is to wed him, and Parvati is the daughter of King Himavan, and there are predictions made that she is destined to marry Shiva, and Parvati is serving Lord Shiva himself, and when she is serving him, one day Manmatha, or Cupid, he comes there being bidden by Indra to cause an attraction between the two, and this is an abortive attempt, and Manmatha is reduced to ashes when he tries to disturb the austerity of Shiva. The beautiful verse of Kalidasa says there, Krodham Prabho Samhara Samhareti Yavad Girahkhe Marutam Charanti Tavat Savanhir Bhavanetra Janma Bhasmavashesham Madanam Chakara. The gods assembled in the sky were only making a plea to Lord Shiva to withhold his anger, but by the time those words could reach Shiva, he had already reduced Manmatha to ashes. Parvati was herself a witness to this kind of reduction of Manmatha to ashes, and this shattered her pride in her own self. Parvati was endowed with superlative beauty, and therefore she had a feeling in the inner recess of her heart that one day she would be able to attract Shiva by her physical charms. Now, even with the support given by Manmatha, this was not possible. Seeing this, Parvati became extremely disappointed, and the opening verse of his Kumarasambhavam refers to this very theme of Parvati getting disappointed, and the first verse runs like this: Tatha samaksham dahata manobhavam pinakina bhagna manoratha sati nininda rupam hridayena Parvati priyeshu saubhagya phala hi charuta. I'll write this verse down and explain. तथा समक्षं दहता मनोभवं पिनाकिना भग्नमनोरथा सती निनिन्दरूपं हृदयेन पार्वती प्रियेषु सौभाग्यफला हि चारुता. The subject of the sentence is Parvati. The verb is Nininda. Parvati condemned. What did she condemn? Her own Rupam. Rupam refers to the form. Parvati condemned her own beauty. This she did heartily. Hridayena means heartily. Why did Parvati do so is explained in the first half of the verse. Because Parvati had become frustrated. The word Bhagna Manoratha means frustrated. Parvati was frustrated. Her desires and ambitions were shattered on account of Pinakina. Pinakin refers to Shiva. So, by Lord Shiva. Pinakina refers to Lord Shiva. What made Shiva frustrate her ambitions? Because Shiva had destroyed Manmatha. Manobhava stands for Cupid or Manmatha, and Dahata means burning. Now this burning of Manmatha did not take place in the absence of Parvati. This happened right in front of. Samaksham refers to right in front of. And the way in which this was done, Tatha refers to that manner. Now Parvati was thus disappointed and condemned her beauty. And Kalidasa gives a universal statement in the last quarter of the verse, which says Charuta or charm, which has as its fruit, phala is fruit. Saubhagya means being fortunate. With regard to the lover, Priyeshu. Let's go into the details of the verse now. Parvati, the word Parvati has its derivation like this. Parvatasya apatyam stri. Parvata refers to Himavan, her father, and as she is the child of Parvata, she is called Parvati. Parvati is one of the names of Devi, Shiva's wife, as we can get from the synonyms of the word Parvati, Aparna, Parvati, Durga, Mridani, Chandika, Ambika, and so on. She condemned her form, Rupam Nininda. Nininda is from root Nind. Technically it is Nidhi is the root that is given in the Paniyan Dhatu Patha, and this is the lit form of the root Nind. So the forms are Nininda, Ninindatuhu, Nininduhu, Nininditha, Ninindatuhu, Nininda, Nininda, Ninindiva, Ninindima. So this is the Prathama Purusha Ekvachana form or third person singular form of root Nidhi. Parvati Nininda. Kim Nininda? Rupam Nininda. Rupam is her own form or beauty. Katham Nininda. Hridayena Nininda. So she heartily condemned her beauty. So she deprecated her form primarily because it was absolutely useless. It served no purpose. On the one hand, she had witnessed how Shiva had destroyed Manmatha. Manasi bhavati iti manobhavaha. Tam manobhavam So Manmatha is called Manobhava because he is born of the mind. Shambararir Manasijaha says Amarakosha. So he is born in the mind. And therefore Manobhava is Manmatha. And Manmatha was reduced to ashes. Dahati. So Dahata is the present participle or the Vartamana Kridanta of root Dah. Daha Bhasmikarane is the meaning given in the Dhatu Patha. Bhasmikarana is reduced into ashes. And therefore Manmatha was reduced to ashes by Lord Shiva. Shiva himself is called Pinakina, referred to here as Pinakina. The word Pinaka refers to the bow of Shiva. Pinako Jagavam Dhanuhu says Amarakosha. And therefore the person who wields this bow is called Pinakin. And Samaksham refers to the activity that took place right in front of the eyes of Parvati. Akshnoho Samipam Samaksham is an avibhava samasa. So right in front of the eyes of Parvati this event happened. Had this happened in the absence of Parvati, then probably the effect would not have been as effective. So Parvati had in her heart of hearts a feeling that one day Shiva would be charmed by her extraordinary beauty, and that was not to be the case. As was pointed out earlier, even with the assistance provided by Manmatha, there was absolutely no effect of the beauty of Parvati upon Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is known as the greatest of yogins, and therefore he would not be swayed by such things as the physical beauty and so on. On the other hand, it is only through the purity of heart that the heart of the Lord can be attracted, and therefore utterly frustrated by this kind of destruction of Manmatha right in front of her eyes, Parvati became utterly disappointed and deprecated her extraordinary charm. Hridayena Parvati Rupam Nininda. And on this occasion Kalidasa makes one general statement. He says that charm has as its fruit the winning over of the heart of the beloved. Saubhagya is the winning over of the heart. Malinatha in his commentary on this verse says Saubhagyam Priya Vallabhyam. So that is the definition of the word Saubhagya. So being the beloved of the lover, Priya Vallabhyam is the definition given for Saubhagya. And if this does not happen, Charta is utterly useless, and therefore Parvati condemns her own charm, her own physical beauty, saying that it has not served any of its purpose. So in this verse Kalidasa has shown how things such as beauty have to have their own purpose, and ultimately if they fail in their purpose, it is of no use. In the next verse Kalidasa shows what Parvati decided to do in the absence of the bearing of the fruit of this charm of hers. The next verse runs like this: Iyesha sa kartum avandhya rupatam samadhimasthaya tapobhiratmanah. Avapyate va kathamanyatha dvayam tatha vidham prema patischa tadrishaha. येष सा कर्तुम अवन्ध्यरूपतां समाधिमास्थाय तपोभिरात्मनः अवाप्यते वा कथमन्यथा द्वयं तथाविधं प्रेम पतिश्च तादृशः. In this verse, Kalidasa says that Parvati did not keep quiet after the frustration that she met with upon the destruction of Manmatha, nor did she develop negative thoughts regarding the same. On the other hand, she decided to make her beauty fruitful, and for this she took recourse to a great means. And in this context, Kalidasa makes a general remark: how else can one think of attaining such a great love and such a great husband? This is the gist of the verse. The subject of this verse is Sa. Sa refers to Parvati. Kartum iyesha. She desired. Iyesha means she desired. Kartum, in order to do, to achieve. What's it that Parvati desired to achieve? She wanted to make her form not fruitless. Vandhya in Sanskrit is something that bears no fruit. Avandhya means fruitful. So her form, her rupa, should become fruitful, and for the sake of this, the method she chose is referred to in the second half of the second line of the verse. Atmanaha tapobhihi samadhim asthaya. So she would be established, asthaya, being established in the state of samadhi. Samadhi is a technical term which we will come into a little later. Through her own, atmanaha is her own, tapobhihi, by her austerities. Otherwise, Kalidasa says, anyatha is otherwise. Katham avapyate. How is it accomplished? Avapyate is attained or accomplished. Dvayam, the pair, the two things. How are these to be accomplished? And what are those two things? Tathavidham prema. Prema is love. Tathavidham, of that kind. And patischa tadrishaha, and a husband of that sort. So Parvati decided to make her form fruitful. It should not go waste simply because it did not earn what it should have achieved. Parvati did not rest there. On the other hand, she thought of a method by which her form could be made more fruitful. A negative approach would be to develop disdain regarding one's own form and charm. And on the other hand, while Parvati on the one hand condemned her own beauty, the deprecation did not stop there. She adopted a constructive approach and she thought of ways of making it fruitful. It should not be Vandhya. On the other hand, it should be Avandhya. Vandhya is what is fruitless, what cannot bear fruit is Vandhya. And Avandhya is something that will serve its purpose. Rupa is her form, and the condition of her form not going waste is Avandhya Rupata. Now this is what she sought to achieve, kartum iyesha. So this is from root ishu ichchayam, for which it is the lit form, lit prathama purusha ekvachana form or third person singular form. Sa iyesha, Parvati desired to make her form serve its purpose, and for this the only method that was possible was her own austerities, atmanaha tapobhihi. This is not a case where one can employ a person to do some proxy service. On the other hand, she has to do it on her own. Her own efforts have to make way for making her form fruitful, and therefore atmanaha tapobhihi. We often translate the word tapas through the word penance. This is not a very correct translation, because the word penance has its other signification. The word penance, if you go to its root, is connected with penitence, where it is a sort of a prayaschitta, and there is no sin committed for which some penitence is required, and therefore tapas is not best translated as penance. The word tapas has no exact English equivalent, but the word austerity comes somewhat close to the word tapas, and therefore it is better to retain the word austerity rather than penance. So even the word tapovana is translated as penance grow. However, we must take care to know that the word penance there stands for tapas and not for the significance of the word penance in English. So through her austerities, Parvati wanted to attain her goal, and through these austerities the peak of the austerity is to be achieved. The peak of the austerity is called samadhi. So the word samadhi is derived from sam and a, two prepositions, to the root dha. So dha is to place, a plus root dha is also to place, and sam a dha is to focus in one point. So this is concentration. So on one center where we focus things, focus our mind. Samadhi asthaya, by being established in samadhi. The word asthaya is from a, the preposition, plus root stha, which is shtha gati nivrittau according to dhatu patha, and plus lyap. So the word, the suffix lyap is added to root stha here, and this gives the form asthaya. Otherwise, without the upasarga, lyap is not added, the form would be sthitva, as it takes a ktva suffix there. Samadhi asthaya. The word samadhi is a technical term in Yoga Shastra. So in Yoga Shastra we have the 8 steps or 8 limbs of yoga, as they are called. It is called Ashtanga Yoga, and samadhi stands as the highest step in the 8 limbed yoga. The 8 limbs are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. All these have been defined and explained in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and in the commentaries thereon. So such as the reputed Vyasa Bhashya and Vachaspati's commentary on this and so on. So of these, yama and niyama refer to the basic minimum lifestyle and culture of a person who would aspire to be a yogin. Asana refers to the way one sits in order to develop concentration of mind, and pranayama refers to the control over the breath that one must have in order to attain the higher states of consciousness. Pratyahara, dharana, and dhyana refer to the focusing of the mind. Pratyahara refers to the withdrawal of the senses from their objects. Dharana is making them stay that way, making the mind stay in the state of pratyahara. And then dhyana is what is referred to as tailadharavad avichinna smriti santana rupa. So it's like a flow of oil, so it's utterly continuous with absolutely no discontinuities. And samadhi is the highest state of concentration on one's own self or on the Supreme Lord, in the innermost recess of one's own heart. So this is the scheme of the yoga with its 8 limbs. These 8 are called together constitute what is known as Ashtanga Yoga. So attaining to that state of samadhi or supreme concentration, samadhim asthaya, which is possible only through tapas or austerities. So tapaha is sometimes referred to as dvandva sahanam. So it is bearing the dualities of heat and cold and so on. So attaining equanimity. Therefore, through tapas, Parvati attains to a state, a physical condition as well as mental condition, which leads to this state of samadhi. And it is through this state that her goal could be achieved. Her goal was to attain Shiva, and she knew that Shiva is the Supreme Lord, and therefore the attainment of the same is possible only through this state of samadhi. And it is upon attaining him that her form becomes worthy of her, a worthy one. And therefore Parvati resorted to this tapas. Kalidasa says, avapyate va kathamanyatha dvayam tatha vidham prema patischa tadrishaha. So dvayam refers to pair, the two taken together. There is no other manner. So anyatha katham avapyate. Avapyate is a rhetorical question. So with its ready answer, that sarvatha na avapyate, answer being very evident. This is called a rhetorical question in English. Avapyate va katham anyatha dvayam. The word avapyate is from root av, which has 2 upasargas, ava and api. I'm sorry, it has the prefix ava, and apyate is the passive form of root ap, the active form being apnoti. The passive form is apyate, and with the upasarga ava, the form is avapyate. It is the let form of the same, the vartamana kala form, and prathama purusha ekvachana form of the root. Avapyate va kathamanyatha dvayam tatha vidham prema. Such kind of love. So the word preman has forms in 2 genders. Here it is qualified by the word tatha vidham, which is in neuter, and therefore the neuter word prema is what is taken up here. So prema, premani, premani are the forms. Tatha vidham prema is a love of that sort. The word tatha vidham itself is to be analyzed as tatha vidha yasya tat. Tatha vidham prema, a love of that sort. Neither this can be achieved without the performance of those austerities, nor can a husband of that type patischa tadrishaha. As you can see in the other cantos of Kumarasambhavam, Parvati has been referred to as premna sharirardha haram harasya. So such was the love that she verily seized half the body of Shiva himself. Premna sharirardha haram shivasya. So that was the kind of love that the two developed. And tadrishaha patihi refers to the various qualities of Shiva as have been detailed in the future verses in Kumarasambhavam 5th canto itself and elsewhere. So it is an extraordinary love and an extraordinary husband that have been portrayed here, and therefore in order to attain the same, no means less than tapas can be possible. There is a saying of Manu in his Manusmriti glorifying the potency of tapas. Yad dushkaram, yad durapam, yad durgam, yach dustaram, tat sarvam tapasa sadhyam tapohi duratikramam. He says, whatever is difficult to accomplish by any other means can be accomplished through tapas, and therefore tapas is something unsurpassable, and therefore this is the most unsurpassable means to attain the supreme goal that can be possible in one's life, and therefore Parvati took shelter under this method, this austerity, to attain Lord Shiva. Nishamya chainam tapase kritodyamam sutam girisha pratisakta manasam uvacha mena parirabhya vakshasa nivarayanti mahato munivratat. The shloka is simple enough and it requires almost no padavibhaga, excepting the second word, chainam, to be split as cha and enam. Parvati's mother's name is Mena. Now that forms the subject of this sentence. Mena uvacha. She spoke. Mena spoke to Parvati. And she did this in a very endearing manner, and therefore she embraced her. Parirabhya means embracing, by her bosom. Vakshasa. She spoke to her daughter Sutam. Because she had come to know Nishamya, she had heard her daughter as qualified by two things. Number one, Girisha Pratisakta Manasam. Girisha is Shiva. As the Amarkosha says, Girisho Mridaha. And Pratisakta Manasam, her mind, Parvati's mind, is deeply attracted to Lord Shiva. Girisha Pratisakta Manasam. And she was further, and as a consequence, Tapase Kritodyamam. So Udyama is endeavor. So she had begun to make her endeavors, Kritodyamam, for her austerity, Tapase. So coming to know of her daughter, the condition of her daughter, namely that she had given her mind totally to Lord Shiva, and that she had resolved to resort to austerities in order to attain Lord Shiva, Mena gave her reaction. So Mena spoke. Mena uvacha, embracing her daughter, Parirabhya Vakshasa. And she wanted to dissuade her daughter from the enterprise that she was taking up. So Nivarayanti is preventing or dissuading. Dissuading her daughter Sutam, to be taken up here once again. Sutam Nivarayanti. From what? From the vrata is vow. Muni vrata is ascetic vow. Mahataha is great. Mahataha Muni vratat, from the great ascetic vow. So the situation was like this. The daughter of Mena, namely Parvati, had taken up an ascetic vow. As we saw in the previous verse, she was to resort to samadhi, the highest state of austerity, and the attainment of this state involves taking recourse to the ascetic vows, and the ascetic vows are rather hard. It demands a great deal of discipline and a great deal of shoshana of one's own prakriti. So these are technical terms in Yoga Shastra, and this involves a great deal of difficulty, physical order and austerities and difficulties that she will have to undergo. As a mother, she was very much perturbed regarding Parvati undergoing all those difficulties, and therefore she tried to dissuade Parvati, Nivarayanti. So Nivarayanti is trying to prevent or dissuading, the opposite of persuading. She could not bear as a mother to see her own daughter undergoing so very many difficulties, because the ascetic vows are not simple. As you know, the Himalaya has been traditionally known as the very abode of great ascetics performing tapas of various extremities. In the Ramayana, for example, we get a description of the austerities of the various sages, and those are something that are not easily imagined also. So such unimaginable hardships that ascetics undergo, so is what Mena is also clearly aware of, and Parvati also is aware of, and as a mother she could not bear to see her own daughter undergoing all those austerities and hardships, and therefore Parvati's mother could not withstand the idea of her daughter undergoing these hardships, and therefore she wanted to dissuade her daughter from undergoing those difficulties, and therefore she embraced her daughter, Parirabhya. So it is Pari plus root Rabh, for which you have the Lyap Pratyaya added. So Parirabhya means embracing, holding fast, Vakshasa upon her bosom. So she embraced her daughter closely, and clasping her, Mena uttered these words. The words that she actually uttered occur in the next verse. So Nishamya, it is from Ni plus root Sham plus Lyap. This root has a special meaning. So Shamu Uparame is the Dhatu Patha, and the form Nishamya and Nishamya have different senses. So Nishamya is hearing, and Nishamya would be seeing. As for example, in the Ramayana we have Bharadwaja Nishamaya. Nishamaya means look at. So Ni plus root Sham has two forms. So one means to see and another means to hear. Here the word Nishamya means having heard. So coming to hear of Parvati, Enam. Now Enam refers to Parvati. It is a pronoun from Etat Shabda, Strilinga. Esha, Ete, Etaha, Etam, Enam, Ete, Ene, Etaha, Enaha. So this is Strilinga of Etad Shabda, and it is in the Dvitiya Vibhakti Ekvachana form. Enam refers to Parvatim. Enam Parvatim tapase kritodyamam. Udyama is effort, krita is made. Udyama is a word in masculine, and therefore we will have to dissolve it as kritaha udyamaha yaya tam. Parvati had put forth efforts. What for? Tapase. The word tapas is sakaranta napumsakalinga, and tapase is the dative form, chaturthi vibhakti ekvachana form of the word of the base tapas, the forms of which are tapaha, tapasi, tapamsi, etc. And tapase is in chaturthi vibhakti. tapase kritodyamam. Parvati had put forth efforts had already commenced her efforts for tapas, and therefore once Mena came to know of this kind of effort of Parvati, she approached her and said the words that are said in the next verse. She very well knew that Parvati was deeply attached, pratisakta. So, sakta is from root shasja is the root. So, it is from this root that we have the words like sanga and sakti, sakta are all derived. Pratisakta means drawn towards Girisha. So, Girisho, Girisho Mridaha refers to Shiva. So, manasa is the mind. Chittam tu cheto hridayam swantam hrin manasam manaha, says Amarakosha. And therefore, the mind of Parvati was deeply drawn towards Shiva. Mena knew very well that Parvati's mind was drawn towards Shiva and that she deeply loved him, and in order to attain him, she was now to resort to the strongest of austerities. And when Parvati's mother came to know of this, she wanted to dissuade her daughter from undergoing the immense trouble, the immense hardship. So, Munivrata is the ascetic vow. So, Muninam Vratam is Munivratam. Tasmat Munivratat. So, Tasmat Munivratat Nivarayanti. So, in order to stop her from taking up that endeavor, that enterprise, because Munivrata is not an ordinary thing. It is qualified by the word Mahat here. And Munivratat is Napumsakalinga Panchami Vibhakti Ekavachana, and therefore Mahataha, its adjective, is also Napumsakalinga Panchami Vibhakti Ekavachana. So, there is this famous dictum in Sanskrit regarding the relationship between the substantive and the adjective. It says Yallingam Yadvachanam Yacha Vibhaktihi Visheshyasya Tallingam Tadvachanam Sacha Vibhaktihi Visheshanasyapi. Here Mahat is the adjective, the Visheshana, and Munivrata is the word Visheshya. Munivratat is the Visheshya word, and therefore as Munivratat is in Napumsakalinga Panchami Vibhakti Ekavachana, Mahataha is also to be construed as Napumsakalinga Panchami Vibhakti Ekavachana, even though the word Mahataha as such can be Pullinga Panchami Vibhakti Ekavachana also. Here in this context, as it refers to Munivrata, this is Napumsakalinga Panchami Vibhakti Ekavachana. And Nivarayanti is preventing. It is from Ni plus root Vru, for which you have the causal form known as the Nijanta form. So, for which the Nich Pratyaya is added. So, Nivarayati is the let form, Nivarayan is the present participle form in masculine, and Nivarayanti is the form in Strilinga. So, this refers to Mena. So, Nivarayanti Mena Uvacha. So, Mena spoke to Parvati, preventing her from taking this step, which is not a small one. It is a step which involves numerous difficulties and perhaps sometimes even great risks, and therefore, in order to prevent her daughter from taking such great risks and undergoing such great difficulties, Parvati's mother had a word of advice for Parvati. This is stated in the coming verse. We will go to the next verse. I am not able to go to the next page. We will go to the next verse. In Sloka number 4, Manishitaha Santi गृहेषु देवताः तपः क्व वत्से क्व च तावकं वपुः. पदं सहेत भ्रमरस्य पेलवम् शिरीषपत्रं न पुनः पतत्रिणः. This verse gives the actual wordings of Parvati's mother. She says, Manishitaः santi griheshu devataः tapah kva vatse kva cha tavakam vapuh padam saheta bhramarasya pelavam shirisha pushpam na punah patatrinaha. In the first quarter of the verse, Mena gives one option, an alternative option, rather than choosing Shiva. And in the second quarter of the verse, she makes a reference to the fact that tapas is something extremely difficult, which it may not be possible for Parvati to undergo. And in the second half of the verse, she effectively communicates her idea through an excellent analogy. In the first quarter of the verse, she says, Manishitaः santi griheshu devataः. Devataः means deities. Santi, they are. The word devata refers to the divinities. Now, griheshu santi. Griheshu means in their very residence. Manishitaha means those who are dear to one's mind. Manishitaha is an adjective for devataha. Manishitaha devataha griheshu santi. In the second half, in the second quarter, she says, Tapah kva vatse kva cha tavakam vapuh. Vatse, O daughter. Tapaha kwa. Tapaha means, kwa means where. Where is tapas? Where is austerity? And kvacha tavakam vapuh. Where is your body? Vapuh is body. Tavakam is your. Where is tapas and where is your body? Where is austerity and where is your frame? The analogy given is of Shirisha Patram. The Shirisha is one of the tenderest of flowers. Patram is leaf or a petal. The petal of Shirisha is extremely delicate. So it is qualified by Pelavam means tender. Pelavam Shirisha Patram. It can Saheta means withstand. It can withstand the step Padam Brahmarasya of a bee. But it cannot withstand Na, refers to Na Saheta. It cannot withstand Patatrinaha. The word Patatrin in Sanskrit means a bird. So, not of a bird, by no means, na punaha, of a bird, Patatrinaha, na. The way Parvati's mother dissuaded Parvati is given in this verse. she says Parvati can think of other divinities. It is not Shiva alone that she must think of getting married to. There are alternative recourses. There are other divinities, and those divinities need not have to be searched for somewhere in some corner of the world. They are there in the very residence of Parvati herself. The Himalayan region is verily said to be the abode of gods, and therefore all the gods and divinities are to be found there. Many of the divinities dwell therein within the regions of the Himalayas. They are all fond of the Himalayan region, and therefore very many gods reside there, and therefore there are so many gods that dwell in our own residence. So Griheshu refers to Asmakam Griheshu. So Asmakam Griheshu refers to the Himalayan regions. So in this very dwelling of ours, many divinities that are dear to our heart, Manasaha Ishitaha, so those who are dear to our heart, many divinities who are highly desirable, they dwell there. Santi. The word Santi is from root As. Asabhuvi is the Dhatu Patha, which means the root As is used in the sense of being. The form Santi is in the Lat Lakara, Prathama Purusha, Bahuvachana. The forms are Asti, Staha, Santi, Asi, Sthaha, Stha, Asmi, Swaha, Smaha. So this is the Prathama Purusha Bahuvachana form or third person plural form, and refers to Devataha. The word for God in Sanskrit can be either masculine, as in Deva is a masculine word, or Devata, which is a word in which is feminine, and the word Daivatam, which is in neuter. And therefore it's not the sort of the rational gender or natural gender that we come across in English that we have in Sanskrit. So all the three words Deva, Devata and Daivatam, respectively masculine, feminine and neuter, refer to the God. Here the word Devataha is used. Obviously this Strilinga, Prathama Vibhakti, Bahuvachana. So Devata, Devate, Devataha. And as it is qualified by Manishitaha, the word Manishitaha is also Strilinga, Prathama Vibhakti, Bahuvachana. Manishitaha, Devataha, Griheshu Santi. So we have the word Griham also in Sanskrit. Here the word, we have the masculine word Griha Pumsicha Bhumnieva. So Devataha Griheshu Santi. Manishtaha Devataha Griheshu Santi. They are there in our own dwelling. So Parvati can think of an alternative divinity in order to attain whom she need not undergo these very many difficulties. Tapahkva vatse, O daughter, vatse, tapahkva, whither austerity? Where is penance and where is your own body? Kvacha tavakam vapuhu. The two kwas used here bring out utter contrast. There is a maxim in Sanskrit which says dvau kvau mahadantaram gamayataha. So two kwas bring out a vivid contrast. So mahadantaram is a gulf of difference. Just as we have dvau nayau prakritartham dridayataha, there is another maxim. Here we have the word qua used twice, conveying a world of contrast. So tapaha qua and tavakam vapuhu qua. Tavakam refers to tava idam. This is Tadita formation, and the word tavakam refers to vapuhu. The word vapus in Sanskrit is Napumsakalinga, and therefore it is to be declined as vapuhu, vapushi, vapumshi. As it is neuter in gender, we have the word tavakam also in neuter. As a derivation from Tvachabda, So we have the forms Tavaka in masculine. So and the neutral form is Tavakam. Tavakam Vapuhu, your frame. Whither that. So while tapas demands the highest of hardships and difficulties, her body is extremely tender, and therefore the two are to be greatly contrasted. So where is your form, my daughter, and where is austerity? Your body is not fitted for austerity. Those who have to perform austerities have to be very strong and sturdy, whereas Parvati possesses a tender frame, and the tenderness of the frame of Parvati is brought out in a future verse, where it is said that she used to be pained by even the flowers on her bed, and being so tender, it would be well nigh impossible for her to even think of undertaking austerities which demand a great rigor and a high discipline, and therefore tapas may not be the best recourse that Parvati has, and these two are greatly contrasted, and therefore she must think of an alternative way, an alternative divinity. In order to bring home the contrast between the two, she gives the examples of the petal of the Shirisha flower. The Shirisha is the tenderest of flowers, and therefore this tender flower can at most withstand the step of a bee. So Bhramara is a bee, and its padam, its step, is Pelavam, so its tender step. So it is that the flower petal can bear, withstand. So Saheta is from root Sah. The Panini Dhatupata is Shaha Marshane. So it can bear only the tender step of a bee. Napunaf patatrinaha, patatri patra pataga, these are all synonyms of bird in Sanskrit, and therefore patatrin is a bird, it is a word in masculine. So patatrinaha is Pullinga, Shashti Vibhakti, Ekvachana form. Patatrinaha padam na saheta Shirisha Patram. So Shirisha Patram, Patram is Navumsakalinga, therefore it is in the Navumsakalinga Pratama Vibhakti Ekvachana form. That is the subject of the latter half of the verse. Shirisha Patram Brahmarsya Padam Saheta. Shirisha Patram Patatrinaha Padam na Saheta. So it cannot bear the step of a bird. So obviously birds are very heavy and the bee is very light. Even so, Parvati's frame is extremely delicate and tender, and it can withstand some ordinary vows, ordinary vratas, but not us, which is full of great hardships and difficulties. And therefore, by means of this analogy of the Shirisha petal, she shows how the Shirisha would drop and droop onto the earth, unable to withstand the perch of the bird, and therefore it is only the step of the bee which sits very lightly on the flower to collect the honey of the flower that the Shirisha Patra can bear, and it is not possible for the lotus, the petal of this flower to withstand the perch of the bird, and therefore she says that alternative recourses are possible, and tapas is not the best recourse for her, and it ill suits her frame, which is extremely delicate, and it is best that she thinks of something else than what she is now resorting to, namely tapas. Tapas is something that is possible only for especially men who have a very strong frame, and as you can see later, even the best of men come to pay homage to Parvati when she performs her rigorous austerities, and therefore being a princess of a very delicate frame, so it may not be possible for Parvati to succeed in what she is doing. It is one thing to commence great enterprises, and it is not possible sometimes to complete the enterprise once one has taken up, and there is a saying in Sanskrit, Arambhashurah khalu dakshinatyaha, and therefore it should not become a mark of Arambhashuratva. So embarking upon an immense task which one may not be able to complete, and therefore that will lead to another kind of frustration, and therefore Parvati is warned here that that kind of an effort or endeavor which may not take her to the completion of the course and the attainment of the fruit may not be commendable for her, and therefore a tender hearted mother, he is advising here full of affection to her daughter, so to in order to dissuade her from taking recourse to this penance which is not easy to achieve. Manishita santi grihesha devataha tapah kvavatse kvachatavakam vapuhu padam saheta brahmarasya pelavam shirisha patram na punah patatrinaha. Iti sthirecha manushasati sutam Shashakamena na niyantu mudyamat. Kaipsitarthasthira nischayam manaha payascha nimnabhimukham pratipayet. This is the fifth verse of the fifth canto of Kumarasambhavam. The speech of Parvati's mother ends in the last verse itself. It is a single verse advice. The consequence of the same is given in this verse. Iti sthirecha manushasati sutam shashakamena na niyantu mudyamat ka ipsitarthasthira nischayam manaha payascha nimnabhimukham pratipayet. Mena is the subject of the sentence, the mother of Parvati. Shashaka means was able. Na Shashaka was not able. Mena was not able. Regarding what? In dissuading her daughter from her enterprise. Udyama is enterprise. Niyantum is to regulate or restrict. Restrict whom? Restrict her daughter. Sutam is daughter. Now this was not possible in spite of the strong advice that was given by her mother. So anushasati means giving advice. Why did her advice not succeed? Because her daughter Suta was firm in her conviction. Sthira means firm. Ichha is desire. So Parvati had a very clear and very firm desire. Sthirecha she was, and therefore her mother was not successful in preventing her from her enterprise. Iti it's a quotative word, means the quotation has come to an end. So the actual words of Mena are given in the previous verse, and iti refers to the previous verse. Iti means in these words, in those words. Iti sthirechha manushasati sutam shashaka mena na niyantu mudyamat. Kaipsitartha sthira nischayam manah payascha nimna abhimukham pratipayet is a general statement that is made by Kalidasa in this context. He says, who can reverse? Pratipayet means reverse. Kaha pratipayet? Who can reverse? So, ka ipsitartha, here there is sandhi. So, upon the splitting of the sandhi, we get kaha pratipayet. So, who can reverse? Who can reverse? Number one, manaha, a mind. The resolution, nishchaya, of which is sthira, firm, regarding the artha or an object which has been ipsita, means desired. A mind which is firm regarding the goal it wants to achieve. So, such a mind, who can reverse? None can reverse a mind which has the resolution, a firm resolution regarding an object that it has made up its mind to get. So, none can reverse such a mind. Kalidasa gives an analogy here. So, through a sahokti, payascha, as also waters. Payaha refers to water. Kaha payaha pratipayet. Who can reverse the course of water? And which kind of water? Payaha is qualified by abhimukham, means flowing, facing. Nimna means something deep. So, it is flowing towards a ditch, so a lowly place. Nimnabhimukham payaha kaha pratipayet. As there are two things here, he refers to the two as manaha payascha. So, the mind as well as water. These two things cannot be reversed. The course of these two cannot be reversed. So, he brings out the case of two irreversible things here. Now, we will go to the details of the verse. Mena shashaka. Mena was able. Mena nashashaka means Mena was not able. Once again, this is from the lit form of the root shaka. So, Prathama Purusha Ekvachana form is shashaka. Mena nashashaka. Mena was not able. So, she was not successful in restricting her daughter. Niyantum is to restrict. It is ni plus root yam, for which the suffix tumun is added here. So, niyantum udyamat. So, preventing her from what? From her udyama. Udyama is enterprise. The word udyamaha is masculine. So, this is pullinga panchami vibhakti ekavachana. Udyamat niyantum mena nashashaka. Whom was she not able to so prevent from her enterprise? Her daughter Sutam. And the reason for the unsuccessfulness of the mother is that the daughter was sthirecha, sthira, ichha, yasyaha, sa sthirecha. Tam sthirecham qualifies Sutam. As Sutam is Strilinga Dvitiya Vibhakti Ekavachana, Sthirecham is also Strilinga Dvitiya Vibhakti Ekavachana. Sthirecham Sutam Niyantum Nashashaka. So, iti anushasati means advising her in the words stated above, that is stated in the previous verse, in verse number 4. So, even though she advised her daughter in the words such as have been told in the previous verse, anushasati means advising. So this is from root shas. So shasu is the technical root which has the anu upasarga. The prefix is upasarga, and this is the vartamana kridanta with the shatru pratyaya. So the root patu would have its form in the present participle as patan, but root shas would have it as shasat only, and so here with the feminine form is shasati. Anushasati sutam. Anushasati is an adjective for mena. Mena is F11 strilinga prathama vikti ekvachana, and therefore anushasati is also strilinga prathama vikti ekvachana. Iti sutam anushasati mena tam sutam udyamat niyantum nashashaka. She was not able to prevent her from her daughter who was firm in her resolution. So the ichha of Parvati towards Shiva was sthira, and therefore the course could not be altered. For the non-alteration of the course, Kalidasa gives an analogy. Payaha means water which is flowing downwards, nimna abhimukham. Kaha pratipayet, who can reverse the trend? So it is impossible to reverse the trend of water flowing downwards. In Sanskrit, the word pratipa means opposite, and from out of that word the root has been formed here. Pratipayati means to reverse. So payaha kaha pratipayet. Payaha is navamsakalinga, payaha payasi payamsi. Here the word payaha is in dvitiya vibhakti, so it is navamsakalinga dvitiya vibhakti ekvachana form. So kaha payaha pratipayet, who can reverse water? The water which is flowing downwards. Nimna is something at a low level. Abhimukha means facing, so going towards. Nimna abhimukham payaha, water flowing downwards. Kaha pratipayet, who can reverse? In the present context, the prakrita situation is of Parvati's mind, manaha, which is also irreversible. So if any mind is very decided, is fully resolved, so it has its nishchaya, so which is sthira, which means it is unshakable, immovable. So regarding the object it has contemplated, ipsita is aptum ishtaha ipsitaha. So ipsitascha asau arthascha ipsita arthaha. So artha means the object or the goal. The word artha has several senses in Sanskrit. The Amarkosha lists them as artho abhidheye rai vastu prayojana nivrittishu. So it has these 5 senses, and here it refers to the meaning of vastu. Ipsitartha means the desired object, the object that is aspired for. There are many things that we wish. Now it's not a question of wish. Many times our wishes are not fulfilled and we forget those wishes themselves. Here is the case of a mind which is firmly resolved regarding the attainment of the goal, and therefore ipsitarthasthira nishchayam manaha. Such a mind cannot be reversed. Such a mind is irreversible. Parvati's mind was such, and therefore Parvati's mind was irreversible, and therefore Mena did not succeed in dissuading Parvati from taking recourse to austerities. And by giving sometimes an opposite analogy has to be given to convey something positive. So water flows downwards. Here the mind of Parvati is something that is flowing upwards, and therefore it is a downward analogy for an upward flow. And therefore, as Parvati has an ambition, a high ambition, so her mind is fixed towards a high goal. The flow of her mind towards an upward goal, so has here been compared to the water flowing downwards, and therefore the common factor in both is being determined to reach the goal. So we know that water flows downwards on account of gravitation, and in the case of the great, their mind gravitates towards a higher goal, and therefore the mind of Parvati was irreversible, as would water be irreversible when it flows downwards. So this shloka shows how Mena, though she had appreciation for Parvati's attraction towards Shiva, she knew that it was a great goal, but she could not bear to see Parvati undergoing the very many hardships and difficulties that she will have to undergo to attain that goal, and therefore out of sheer compulsions of compassion and her love towards her daughter, so that filial love prevented, persuaded Parvati's mother to prevent Parvati from undertaking the difficult enterprise, and in spite of her best of advice, Parvati did not change her mind. She was firm in her resolution. She had the clarity and the conviction regarding the attainment of the goal that she was to achieve, and therefore Kalidasa says here that Mena could not achieve her goal of preventing Parvati from taking recourse to the austerities, and he gives a universal statement here. Now, such situations where a general statement substantiates a particular statement, or a particular statement corroborates or confirms a general statement, such situations are said to have the figure of speech called arthantara nyasa. Even in the very opening verse also we have this figure of speech called arthantara nyasa. So which say the definition of which is given as uktir arthantara nyasa syat samanya visheshayoho. So there is a samanyokti and there is a visheshokti, where a visheshokti is substantiated by a samanyokti, or a samanyokti corroborated by a visheshokti. The figure of speech is called arthantara nyasa. So in the first verse we have the general statement, the universal statement samanyokti, namely priyesha saubhagya phalahi charuta. So substantiated by the first three lines of the verse. Here the second half of the verse is substantiated by the first two lines of the verse. So it says that a firm mind and water flowing downwards are irreversible, given as an analogy to the resolution of Parvati as regards her own goal. It's over, sir.